Hello and welcome to today's webinar, VMware Cloud Foundation 101, brought to you by VMware. My name is David Davis. I'll be the moderator for the event today. Being a 101 event, we want to keep this very educational. We want to get all the questions you have about VMware Cloud Foundation. What is it? How's it work? Does it do this XYZ? We want to get all those questions, and by the end of the event, we want to do our best to answer all those questions. So make sure you use the GoToWebinar questions box right there to ask your questions, and we'll be doing a Q&A session with our VMware expert, Mr. Josh Townsend, at the end of the event. For one lucky attendee, we've also got a $300 Amazon gift card that we'll be randomly selecting at the end of the event, and I'll be announcing that attendee's name. So make sure you stay tuned for that. All right, we've got a lot to cover today about VMware Cloud Foundation, VMware's brand new product. So let's get started. Like I said, my name is David Davis. I'm the moderator for today's event. You can follow me on Twitter, David M. Davis, and my company, which is presenting today's event, is Actual Tech Media. Being a VMware admin previously, and in my previous job many years ago, and an IT manager for many years, and a vExpert now for many years, I'm very interested personally in VMware's Cloud Foundation. And so I've got a lot of questions for Josh, and I hope you will too. I'm glad to be joined by Mr. Josh Townsend. He's a senior technical marketing architect at VMware. He goes by Joshua Townsend on Twitter. Make sure you open up Twitter right now and follow him. Check out his blog. Josh, thanks for being on. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, David. So again, my name is Josh Townsend. I'm a 15-year veteran of VMware technology. Started out in 2001 as a customer using GSX and Workstation, and have continued on both as a customer, a VMware partner doing consulting and sales, and now working for VMware in technical marketing. So lots of product experience. I also am on the leadership team for the Washington, D.C. VMUG, and in my spare time, what little I have, I'm a volunteer firefighter and first responder in Ashburn, Virginia, which is a little point of trivia, carries about 70% of the world's internet traffic at any given time. So if the internet burns down, you can blame me.
Awesome, awesome. So that's a real picture there of you on duty doing your job, huh,
Yep.
Josh? That's cool.
Yep.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on. I'm glad to have someone of your expertise and your knowledge about VMware technologies on to talk about VMware's, one of their newest products, VMware Cloud Foundation. It's still very new to me, and I know it's probably still very new to those out there in the audience, which is why we had such a tremendous interest in today's 101 event. So thanks for being on. The basic agenda today is we're going to answer questions like, what is Cloud Foundation? How can it help you? How does it work? Like I said, we're going to have the Q&A at the end, and then the prize giveaway. Now, to give everybody kind of a jump start on what Cloud Foundation is, we've got a roughly 2-minute video here. It's not very long, roughly 2 minutes, and I'm going to play the video for you now. And this is something actually I've never done before, so cross your fingers for me. But hopefully you will see a very cool video in just a moment on VMware Cloud Foundation.
Have fueled the rapid growth of the cloud. It's promise of easier, faster innovation at a lower cost. But what many enterprises are finding is that architecting and managing a cloud using inflexible and expensive legacy infrastructure is slow, costly, and just plain hard. What your company needs is access to enterprise-level, highly dynamic compute, storage, networking, and management services. You want a complete software-defined data center built on a market-leading cloud infrastructure platform and cloud management solution, available on demand, whether from your on-premise systems or from cloud service providers. With your cloud infrastructure in particular, you want a simple, secure, reliable way to stand it up in hours, not days or months. And you want it delivered in one unified, easy-to-manage solution. You want VMware Cloud Foundation. VMware Cloud Foundation brings together vSphere, vSAN, and NSX into one fully integrated stack with a built-in automated lifecycle management through SDDC Manager. The new SDDC Manager makes building and managing your private cloud easy by automating the bring-up, configuration, infrastructure provisioning, and upgrade and patching of the entire SDDC stack. This same platform can now be extended from your on-premise private cloud and delivered as a service on the public cloud through partnerships such as AWS, IBM Cloud, and vCloud Air. You can run any application anywhere without needing to worry about infrastructure compatibility or service level agreements. With VMware Cloud Foundation, you can get to market 8 times faster and be twice as productive, while saving up to 45% in costs when compared to traditional approaches. Eliminate the complexity, time, and cost associated with building and managing your cloud infrastructure, and get a best-in-class hybrid cloud infrastructure stack ready for any application today and in the future. Transform your enterprise now with VMware Cloud Foundation, the unified software-defined data center platform for the hybrid cloud.
All right, so that's the end of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Josh, let me go ahead and change presenter over to you so you can start your presentation. My favorite part of the video was the little rocket with the VM in it, the rocket blasting off into space with a VM. Josh, are you there?
Yes, and that was my favorite part too. I kind of laughed. I didn't know that we sent VMs to space, but sure enough.
Awesome, awesome.
I'm assuming you all can see my presentation, and I think we're ready to rock and roll.
I can see your screen. Yeah, take it away.
Terrific. So for you latecomers, several joined while the video is playing. My name is Josh Townsend. I am a Senior Technical Marketing Architect with the Integrated Systems Business Unit at VMware, and we are the business unit responsible for the product called VMware Cloud Foundation. What we're going to do today, kind of break it into 2 parts. The first part, and I'll try to keep this brief, try not to refer to it as this too often, but we'll call it the marketing fluff for now. What is the product? What problem are we trying to solve? Why do you need it? And what's going to happen once it's in your environment? And then after that, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of the product. What are the components, the process of actually deploying the product, and then how you can get started using the product, or at least evaluating it further for your needs. So the problem, what problem is Cloud Foundation trying to solve? When we look at the current state of IT today, we see 2 main modes of deployment. There's still the private data center, which has been a thing now for decades, and then there's the public service providers, the cloud providers. On the private data center side, you see a lot of complexity, a lot of manual tasks just left over from days of yore, very resource intensive, and very uniquely built to each customer's specifications. It's tough to go from one customer to another and find the same thing in each place. On the public side, there's vendor lock-in. Once you deploy to AWS, it's tough to get out. Management silos and uncontrollable costs. So that's one side of the problem. The other side of the problem, and I already kind of alluded to this, is the manual tasks. Right? Think about deploying a vSphere server. I'm assuming most of you on this webinar are indeed vSphere administrators. And so you install one ESXi server, press F11 and enter a few times. It's done, but it's not, right? You still have to configure uplinks and passwords and DNS and NTP and port groups, and you have to patch it on an ongoing basis, on and on and on. And that's just one host. What happens when we bring in storage and networking? Things start to get a little busy. Starts to get a little harder. You're thinking about zoning and multipathing and LUNs and how you carve up your NFS volumes and VLANs and routing and 802 AD and all that stuff just to make a simple cluster work. Things did get better as VMware introduced vSAN and NSX. We compartmentalized probably isn't the right word, but we kind of circled the wagons and make it easier to manage as a whole unit. But it's not quite there yet. right? It still requires a lot of manual tasks. And not just on the provisioning side. As you start thinking about the environment holistically, it's really a lot of the day two tasks. The lifecycle management of your environment is still quite a daunting chore for many vSphere shops. So what we see is that a lot of customers today are still in this do-it-yourself mode, and it's not a great place to be. From a flexibility standpoint, sure, you can choose whatever bits and pieces you want. You know, a widget from vendor A and a gadget from vendor B. Cool, put it together, it works. But it's not going to be easy to use, and you're not going to have what we call speed to value. It's going to take you quite a while to recoup your investment. You can do better if you build your own using VMware validated designs. And for those who haven't heard of the VVDs, we have complete documentation on how to deploy vSphere, vSAN, NSX, vRealize, everything all together, how to do it the right way in your environment, and you can follow those and kind of build it yourself, get a little more prescriptive in the hardware you use, but you're still, you got some flexibility, ease operations, maybe improves, but it's not great. So the ultimate then is going to be VMware Cloud Foundation, where everything becomes fully automated. It becomes an out-of-the-box cloud, ready to use on day one, really. So, give you an idea of where you are today and hopefully where you could be tomorrow. And really, the vision that VMware has is this any cloud, any application, any device, right? Being able to just really focus on those higher levels, what the green bars here in this presentation, right? Focusing on the apps and the users and the devices and letting users go mobile. That's what the business cares about. CTO is not going to walk into your office and say, "What did you do today?" and get really tickled pink when you say, "Well, I patched an ESXi host." Right? It just doesn't mean that much anymore. So by leveraging Cloud Foundation, you can move up the stack and really deliver true business value much faster to your customer base. So what is the solution? What is Cloud Foundation? It's a unified vSphere, vSAN, NSX, and a new product, SDDC manager, that's all brought together to provide a platform for the private cloud that has complete automated lifecycle management all around it. You'll hear in the media that it's available both on-premise as well as a service. You can actually get VCF or VMware Cloud Foundation in the public cloud, as well as deploying it on premises in your private cloud. And the benefits that you see here, once you adopt it, making a private cloud easy and fast to build, right? To me, that's probably the huge value. Makes hybrid cloud real. Good marketing term. I'm not sure what that means, to be honest with you. No, but really, you think about deploying workloads wherever they're best suited to run, whether that's based on availability or cost, whatever. Right, that's hybrid cloud, and VCF, because it's available in both private and public clouds, lets you realize that hybridity, which gives you the freedom to run any app anywhere, and obviously a much better TCO than just building things yourself and hoping to figure it out. So the ultimate here is simplicity, right? When we make the underlying infrastructure simple, instead of the complexity of building ESXi hosts and configuring every little bit and piece by itself, we see simplicity, and we get standardization and then much better integration. So VCF is built against the same design principles that are in the VMware validated designs, and it ensures this complete interoperability of the entire SDDC stack. So as you're layering additional products on top, you can be sure that everything is going to work together correctly. It is based on a hyper-converged architecture, which gives you modularity and scalability, and it's a fully engineered solution, right? Don't think of it as a bundling exercise, right? It's not vCloud Suite. It's not just throwing a bunch of products together and saying, here, buy this at a much higher cost than you might otherwise have. This is a true unified product brought together by the SDDC manager component that is going to be new to probably all of you on this call. So what does SDDC Manager do for us? It takes ESX, NSX, vSAN, and vCenter and takes care of all of the day 0, day 1, and day 2 operations that basic cloud infrastructure needs. It takes care of deploying the infrastructure itself. It configures it correctly and uniformly across the environment, no human error coming in. Provides policy-based provisioning of resources out of that pool of resources in your private cloud. And then it provides ongoing lifecycle management in the form of patching and upgrading of all the components. And it does it all together intelligently, so you don't get into the, which comes first. Do I patch vCenter first, or do I patch ESXi first? SDDC Manager knows. So we'll look at that a little bit more. And to follow up with the rest of the marketing fluff, if you will, some of the outcomes that you might recognize as you adopt Cloud Foundation, and here the numbers that I have also include vRealize Suite. Huge TCO savings, 30 to 40% in the customers that we've analyzed, making them 2x more productive and 6 to 8 times faster getting their cloud to market, or getting it available to the business to actually use. And probably more telling is a real customer case study. A customer that we surveyed took 86 days, and a day being 8 man-hours, 86 days to deploy the SDDC stack, all the components of Cloud Foundation. With Cloud Foundation, they did it in 4.5 days. So a huge savings. You're able to provide infrastructure incredibly fast so the business can start using it, which is where the real value comes in. So once you adopt Cloud Foundation, you're going to run stuff on it, right? It's no fun having an infrastructure if you don't actually use it. So on top of it, you're going to run Horizon vRealize Suite. You can run integrated OpenStack, vSphere integrated containers, and within that, you're going to do all sorts of stuff. Your mission critical apps, containerized apps, Hadoop workloads, Internet of Things, whatever your workloads are, Cloud Foundation can run them because it is built on the same foundation as your existing private cloud today, built on vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. And again, it is available in the public cloud today from IBM. Soon, summer 2017 is the closest I can give you, but that's Amazon Web Services, where you'll be able to actually leverage Cloud Foundation out of AWS data centers, and also from select VMware vCloud Air network partners. So with that, we'll conclude Act 1 and get into some hopefully more fun parts, the technical components that show you how this thing all comes together and works. So start with the physical side. What is included in a Cloud Foundation environment? It's redundant power coming in from cloud feeds, so availability, very important. Running on qualified vSAN ready nodes. And the number of nodes that you're going to need is going to be a 4 minimum, up to 32 nodes per rack, and up to 8 racks. Each rack has a pair of top-of-rack switches for connectivity between the servers in the rack itself. There's also a management switch that sits in the rack as well for out-of-bound management. That's your ILO or DRAC connections. And then finally, inter-rack switches. Think leaf and spine type of network configuration. So the spine would be these inter-rack switches. So as you scale out multiple racks of Cloud Foundation, these inter-rack switches provide connectivity between the racks and will uplink to your network core. The ready nodes, there's a huge amount available to choose from, but not all of them are compatible with Cloud Foundation. So we have the link there at the bottom, vmware.com/go/cloudfoundation-vcg will show you the compatibility guide specific to Cloud Foundation, and you can see which of your vendors is providing VCF compatible ready nodes today. The ready nodes that you would buy can be all flash, or they can be hybrid disks. That is a mix of SSD and spinning disks for your vSAN. You see the compute capacity that we can accommodate, and then the network connectivity as well. So visit that link if you're curious to see if any of your existing hardware would support Cloud Foundation, and definitely visit before you decide to purchase anything to make sure it is compatible. So how can you get VCF, the consumption options today? As I said, you can do it on qualified vSAN ready nodes and qualified networking. Today we have 4 vendors who do the ready nodes. That's Dell, Fujitsu, QCT, and HP Enterprise, and the qualified networking would come from Cisco and Arista. So that's one way. You get all the components and get it on site, and maybe you pay a consulting company to come in and do it for you, or if you're skilled enough, you do it yourself. You build it all up and assemble it and cable it and hope you got it right, and then it's good. I like to think that there's a better way. That better way in my mind is the integrated systems. Today available from Dell EMC in the form of VxRack SDDC and from Fujitsu in their PrimeFlex product. With the integrated systems, these systems come pre-assembled, pre-cabled, so all the management switch and top-of-rack switches are already cabled up for you. Everything is in a known position, ready to plug in, turn on, and run. And as I already alluded to, you can also get it from cloud service providers. So today you can go to IBM Bluemix and say, here's my credit card, I want to use Cloud Foundation, and start consuming it. vCloud Air Network partners are coming soon, and Amazon Web Services is starting summer 2017, and you'll purchase those as a service. I've often asked also about Cisco UCS, is that supported? And UCS C-Series is supported, so that's the rack servers, not the blades. So the rack configuration looks something like this. Not too hard to imagine if you've ever been in a data center before. Top of rack switches are in the top of the rack, followed by the management switch. And then the management domain, this is where your vCenter and other management components will run, are going to be on the first 4 nodes in the rack. And then after that, we'll start to carve up our capacity into additional workload domains. So basically clustering different servers together. And again, we're expandable up to 8 racks. The spine switches or the interconnect switches will provide us aggregation across all racks and uplink into your core. You have to have homogeneous nodes within a rack. So that is to say, if you buy a vSAN ready node based on Dell R630s, then all the servers in the rack have to be configured in that way. But that doesn't mean that every single rack has to be. So you could say, okay, now I want to buy a rack that has bigger servers or smaller servers, whatever you want to do. Each rack can be unique, but the hardware within it has to be the same. The physical network architecture, I've alluded to this a few times, so we don't need to spend a whole lot of time here, but I do like to point out that there's a heck of a lot of bandwidth in the config that we point out. Each host, each node in VCF has 2 10 gig E connections coming out of it, going to a top-of-rack switch. The top-of-rack switch has, both of them have a pair of 40 gig connections up to your data center network. So it gives you a whole lot of bandwidth, so it does truly scale correctly. You're not going to meet bottlenecks unless you're running some obscene network loads, which maybe you should reconsider your network architecture at that point. But a huge amount of network bandwidth available. So what does SDDC Manager do, right? When you say, okay, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to wheel it in, I'm going to turn it on, what do I expect? Well, the first step is obviously physical deployment, right? I have to wheel it into my data center. And I'm going to connect the power and the network uplinks to my network core. And that's all done per site surveys that are accomplished ahead of time, either from your integrated systems vendor or from the partner who's helping you with the vSAN ready node do-it-yourself kind of approach. We're going to do a power on inventory validation. So as a system comes up, SDDC Manager comes online, and it checks all of the hardware that is out there, figures out what it has to work with. If you buy the integrated system, so this would be the VxRack or PrimeFlex products, this is already done in the factory, so you don't have to worry about this. During the stage, any DOA hardware is identified and addressed as necessary. Hopefully that That doesn't happen often. And then from there, we're going to gather some customer input. This is some pretty basic stuff. Tell me about your data center. What DNS servers should I point to? What Active Directory servers, NTP, etc. It's all in a very simple wizard. And then what IP address ranges should I be using for vMotion, vSAN, and my VXLAN? So you'll define those for us. If you don't, there's some default values we choose from. And then at that point, the management cluster, the first 4 nodes in the first rack are stood up. And that's going to have SDDC Manager running in it. It's going to deploy the SDDC stack for you. So it's going to deploy ESX onto the physical servers. It's going to deploy vSAN and NSX. It's going to create your vSAN data store. It will also configure vRealize products, vRealize Log Insight and vRealize Operations. And it will turn on vSphere HA for you. And it's building a vSphere environment the right way. And then finally, your SDDC is ready to use. We'll start to carve up what we call workload domains. So for now, just kind of put the idea in your head, and we'll cover workload domains more in depth further in the presentation. But for now, think of a workload domain as a glorified vSphere cluster. And you'll see that it's actually more than that later, but for now, just think cluster. So some of the other components that are deployed as part of this, there's a lot of little bits under the cover that I want to describe to you. The first is the VIA or VIA. It's the imaging appliance. This is what actually handles pushing out all the software bundles, right? All the bits and pieces that SDDC Manager will deploy for you, NSX and vSAN and vSphere and etc. It handles pushing those types of things out and getting the SDDC Manager VM itself actually running. So it's a very simple wizard. And again, if you're buying an integrated system, VxRack or PrimeFlex, this is done for you in the factory. You don't have to worry about this. But if you're building your own, you'll use this tool. Then SDDC Manager is deployed during the imaging. It provides centralized access to your entire SDDC infrastructure, the core underlying infrastructure. SDDC Manager does not replace other VMware products. It's not replacing the vSphere web client. It's not replacing vRealize automation or other tools that you might have. Rather, it augments them and provides that base level view of your private cloud resources. So you can see what you have deployed, you can see what capacity you have, you can see what major tasks are running within your environment, if you're doing configuration or upgrade tasks, and be able to monitor all that low-level stuff from this one new web-based dashboard. Again, it's a clean, simple UI. It's going to deploy, configure, and manage all those base products. And ongoing, it's going to provide physical resource management, workload domain management, and the lifecycle management that the product brings in. So, quick point out some of the features here. Able to see your resources, view the capacity of those resources, create and manage your workload domains, all from one web interface. There's hardware management services that run. Provides discovery, bootstrap, monitoring of hardware via your out-of-band connections. It runs on the management switch actually, and keeps an eye on everything, makes sure it's healthy, and if something does have a problem, notifies SDDC Manager, which will notify you of any problems. There are infrastructure services VMs or ISVMs that run. We provide 3 of these, so you have redundancy and availability, and we configure DRS anti-affinity rules to make sure that there's always at least one ISVM running, even if you have multiple server failures. And it provides a distributed data source service and distributed coordination service to ensure the health and accessibility of all your Cloud Foundation services. So it kind of runs in the background. You don't have to deal with it, but know that it's there and that we've thought through how it runs and how it stays available to make sure that all of your critical Cloud Foundation services stay running for you. Finally, lifecycle management. LCM is a huge, huge part of Cloud Foundation. It's built into the SDDC Manager, accessed through the SDDC Manager web interface. Provides automatic notifications when updates are available. It will download and schedule the downloading of updates from your My VMware account. to the Cloud Foundation instance, and we'll view and monitor and track the status of actually pushing those updates out to your environment. It includes an LCM repository and a backup repository, kind of a staging location, as well as a Cassandra database that runs on the ISVMs to keep a record of what's actually been patched and when and how. SDDC Manager, as I've already alluded to, can also deploy vRealize Log Insight, and vRealize Operations will do that for you automatically, put it into the management domain, and will monitor everything going forward for you. So once SDDC Manager is running, the management domain is deployed, and we start thinking, how do we deploy workload domains? How do we start leveraging things? We get into some of the basics of vSphere, right? It's back to vSphere clusters and distributed switches. But what's different is you're not configuring these things manually. This is all configured for you. You say these are the IP ranges and the VLANs I want to use, and it configures it all for you, including deploying NSX edges and configuring, routing between things correctly, and deploys it all. It makes it simple. Simplification is really the name of the game on this, and it's doing it against standard vSphere components. It does all of these things, and I'm not going to bore you by reading bullet points, but it fully automates the deployment of NSX, the deployment and configuration of it, so NSX is ready to use. So for those of you who say, yeah, NSX looks really cool, maybe I did some hands-on labs with it, I'd like to try it out, but I just don't have the time to figure out how to install the thing, how to use it in my environment. It's too much. I'm being asked to do too much. Can't add this one more thing to my plate. Well, Cloud Foundation made everything really easy to deploy and took care of deploying NSX for you. So you're not wasting time figuring out how to install a product. There's no business value there, right? You're spending time using the product to secure your business workloads. There's a lot of value there. So the software components give you an idea of what's out there and what lifecycle management will do for you. Cloud Foundation licensing includes the imaging appliance, the SDDC Manager, your vCenter and your Platform Services Controller, really one but deployed as multiple VMs, your ESXi and your vSAN and your NSX. Those are all part of the Cloud Foundation license when you buy the license from your reseller. And you can see as we've moved from Cloud Foundation 2.0 to 2.1 to 2.1.1, and today we're on 2.1.3. We continue to patch minor versions of these products as we go. And before we just make a patch available to you to install, it is fully tested, fully validated, and logic is pushed out to say this is the order that the patches need to be done in. Licensed separately, but managed by SDDC Manager are going to be your VROps, your Log Insight, and the Log Insight agent, Horizon, app volumes, and VMware tools on the VMs that you push out. Again, those are licensed separately, but SDDC Manager can fully deploy them for you. There's also Log Insight content packs and VROps management packs that SDDC Manager knows about. So with that, the bits and pieces that are underlying, hopefully interesting to an extent. But really, we're at an age where if you go to the public cloud, you don't think much about which hardware are they running and how is it cabled, right? You just consume it. You assume it's going to run, and that's where we hope that Cloud Foundation can help take you in your private data centers. So really, the object of interest becomes workload domains, right? This is where you're going to deploy your business workloads and make things work. So, picture in your environment today, you have a bunch of vSphere servers. You've created a cluster, you've probably enabled DRS and HA on it, and you say, great, now what? Deploy some workloads on it. Well, do I need a management one? And then the management one will manage a workload one. How does that all work? We asked the same questions when we designed Cloud Foundation, and we said the best way to do it is to have dedicated vSphere clusters. So we're going to have a dedicated cluster for management And then we offer two other types of workload domains, one for virtual infrastructure, this is just running your standard VMs, and one that runs your virtual desktop infrastructure. So it will automatically deploy Horizon, create desktop pools, and make them ready to run in a matter of minutes for you. You can run multiple workload domains in parallel. So your first 4 servers in the rack are going to be your management domain. After that, say you want to carve up 7 servers and use that for virtual infrastructure. Go ahead, tell your workload or tell the SDDC manager how much resources you think you'll need. It will choose the 7 servers, plug them in, and start to use them. Same thing for virtual desktop infrastructure. Choose the next 4. It's very granular. You can choose the right level for you. And then each workload domain is deployed with its own dedicated vCenter server, NSX manager, and NSX controller cluster. So you're able to almost have multi-tenancy, right? If your development group needs a workload domain and you want to give them vCenter access, you can. It's a vCenter that's dedicated strictly to their workloads. They're not going to muck up your other business critical applications that are running on a separate workload domain. So let's break down these management domains, the workload domains a little bit further. We'll start with the management domain. It's a special purpose workload domain. You're going to have one of them. It's, again, comprised of the first 4 hosts. Some people say, what happens if I start deploying a lot of stuff in my management domain? Can I make it bigger? Yes, you can scale it as needed, but we've tried to size it as appropriately as possible for the vast majority of workloads. So it should fit you well initially. The management domain is created automatically during the SDDC manager bring up phase. So it's all done for you, and all the management components, all the cloud infrastructure stuff runs in it. So SDDC manager, your platform services controllers and vCenter, your log insight, your VROps, your NSX, all that runs in there. And it has, in addition, as we deploy these other workload domains, it will have the vCenter servers and the NSX manager VMs from your workload domains, the ones that are actually running your business VMs. Those will run in the management domain, so you don't get into a case of the thing that's being managed has the manager inside of it, right? We keep vCenter out, so even if all the hosts die, vCenter would still live on and be able to manage them and keep configuration and keep things going. So then the virtual infrastructure workload domain, it's a dedicated vSphere cluster. So we'll carve up a cluster, give it a vCenter server of its own that runs in the management domain, and deploy your VMs on it. When we think about the VDI workload domain, we take it a little further. We deploy the full VDI infrastructure for you. When you deploy a workload domain, you specify the capacity, the performance settings, and the availability settings you want, and we take care of the rest. We fully configure the vSphere, vSAN, and NSX environment for you, right away. It just happens. And then if you want to make the workload domain bigger, you can. It's a couple clicks, and more hosts are added to it, and you've got more capacity. If you don't need capacity, you can delete workload domains. You can scale them down. You can eject hosts and reclaim waste at the physical host level from your workload domain. So looking at the shared components of workload domains, and so this is particular to the management workload domain, the platform services controllers are shared. They create a shared SSO domain that all of the other vCenter servers that are deployed in other workload domains will point back to. They'll leverage these PSCs. So you'll have single sign-on across your entire environment. Centralized monitoring in the vRealize and Log Insight instances, and then a dedicated vCenter server and common vSAN, HA, and DRS policies and NSX controllers across the management domain. So as you create a workload domain, any of them at this point, the screenshot on the right is the actual screenshot from the workload domain creation wizard in SDDC Manager. So I mean, dead simple. What is the performance I need? And this is going to be mostly particular to vSAN, because the number of CPUs and the amount of memory in each vSAN ready node is going to be fixed. But you can choose, do you want low, balanced, or high performance, and low, normal, or high availability? And what those settings are doing are playing with the failure to tolerate settings on vSAN as well as object space reservations. So you can just dial it in as you need, and off you go. So as you create that workload domain, very simple stuff that we're going to ask. And this is an example of the virtual infrastructure workload domain. What is the usage name? So this could be development. This could be SAP workload domain. It could be, whatever. And your organization name, if you really want to put one in there. Choose the amount of resources that you want to reserve. So you're just sizing it based on CPU, memory, and storage. Based on the numbers you put in here, SDDC Manager will figure out how many hosts you need to actually meet that demand and add those to the workload domain for you. Again, we're going to choose the high, medium, low kind of settings here for performance and availability, and some network settings. Excuse me. So choosing your VLAN, your subnets, etc. And off you go. So the workload domain is going to include a minimum of 3 hosts. We're going to do that for availability. And it's going to, again, include its own dedicated vCenter server and NSX manager using those shared SSO servers from the management domain. And it's going to be sized based on your calculations. So a little diagram here to kind of give you a mental picture of how it's all going to be deployed. Virtual SAN is going to be deployed. That can be hybrid or it can be all flash. We're going to carve up 2 disk groups per host, and we're going to create just 1 vSAN data store per workload domain. So your vSAN data store will span all the hosts that are in that workload domain. And finally, NSX will be deployed into the management domain, and the controller cluster will be deployed into the workload domain and fully configured, ready for use. So off you go. The VDI workload domain creation process is going to be pretty similar, but it's going to be specific to VMware Horizon. So we're going to ask you the basic VDI usage name. This is going to be the student's workload domain if you're an educational institute, that kind of thing. You're going to choose whether you want to deploy desktops immediately or if you just want to reserve the resources for the desktops later, and you can go back and deploy them when you're ready. Maybe once you've fine-tuned your Windows base image, that kind of thing. You can choose your persistence type, whether you want link clones or full clones, and you can choose whether the desktops will be available just on the corporate network or if you'll be able to connect from anywhere. If you choose connect from anywhere, you'll get security servers or the unified access gateways as we're renaming them as we go forward. You'll choose your desktop settings. So this is the number of desktops that you want to be included in this workload domain, and then choose the resources assigned per desktop. So this is the number of CPUs, amount of RAM, and amount of virtual disk assigned to each desktop. And then finally, choose the images that you want to work with. So this is going to be your Windows Server ISO, so that we can actually build your connection servers and security servers and whatnot for you, and a valid Windows license key that you provide. We're going to ask you for your Windows 7 OVA template. So you're going to have an OVA template that's already fine-tuned, unneeded services are turned off, antivirus installed and fine-tuned, etc. All the stuff you would normally do in a VDI base image, and then the password for that base image so that we can correctly access it. And off you go. So when we deploy the VDI workload domain, you get all the same stuff as in the VI workload domain. Then we add Horizon. So that's Horizon Composer, redundant connection servers, redundant security servers. Optionally, we can deploy Active Directory servers for you if you don't want to point to your existing corporate AD, or you can choose to just point to your corporate AD, and we won't bother with VCF deployed AD servers. And finally, we can deploy at-volume servers for you as well. So a fully configured, ready to run Horizon environment in really just a few simple clicks. You've got desktops ready to give to your users. So workload domains are one huge part of the product, right? Being able to just take a cloud environment that showed up overnight, right? It was wheeled into your data center, carve it up, and make it ready to use. Give resources to the workloads that need them. That's huge, The second part of it that's huge is going to be your day two operations. Day two operations that VCF can really help with are your patching and upgrading. I often, as I visit customers over the years, especially as a consultant here, I can't patch things. I did a lot of work with Horizon customers. They say, well, I don't know if I patch Composer first or vCenter first. And if you do it in the wrong order, you're in trouble, right? You're not going to have a good week. Cloud Foundation really fixes that for you. So we offer upgrade bundles and update bundles. So the upgrade bundles are going to be your quarterly releases. So it's upgrade versions of all the component software, usually containing new functionality. And then the updates are published as needed. So a security fix or some sort of patch or hot fix will push out. So Update Manager, Lifecycle Management can handle both types of updates. The update bundles or upgrade bundles are all predefined. We define them for you, so you don't have to pick and choose and guess and hope you get it right or review compatibility matrices for hours on end. We take care of that for you. And again, we pre-validate all this. We've done integration testing before we push it out to your Cloud Foundation instance. And when I say push it out, I don't mean we're just going to patch willy-nilly for you. We're going to advertise that there is a patch available for you to choose, and you can deploy it when you want to. So as of Cloud Foundation 2.1, the things that we can automate the patching and upgrading for include SDDC Manager, ESXi, your Platform Services Controller, your vCenter server, your NSX components, and vSAN. You see on the right-hand column here the versions that are supported. This is a little bit dated at this point. And again, this was for Cloud Foundation 2.1, and we're on 2.1.3 and are expecting more versions soon that will up these component versions further. So in the future, we also expect to be able to do full patching and upgrading for vRealize Operations, Log Insight, Horizon, App Volumes, and probably some other products if you use your imagination. There's a whole lot of capability that is available to you when all of a sudden you say, hey, I just want to patch my environment. If it runs VMware stuff, whatever that stuff is, it can just get patched magically, easily. You don't have to think about it. It's simple. That's big. Right? It saves you a lot of time, a lot of potential downtime, and hopefully a lot of frustration is saved and not spent on our products. So the ultimate goal is to have SDDC Manager provide lifecycle automation across the entire VMware stack. And the coming soon there in the upper right-hand corner kind of alludes to what we have in mind. So give you an idea of what the patching and upgrading interfaces look like. You're going to receive an automatic notification when software becomes available. So again, VMware has fully tested the integration of the patches, and it'll make sure that we have complete interoperability between all the different components, and that the risk of failure when it's deployed to you is as low as can be. We'll advertise it, as you see in the red box there, highlighted for you. Hey, there's an update. You can view and download the available updates whenever you're ready. So you see we have a software bundle that was released. Download it when you're ready. See, some here have already been downloaded to the repository, but I have 2 new bundles that I could pull in as necessary. You may see here in this slide some artifacts here. The product used to be called Evo Rack or Evo SDDC. So if you see those names, we've changed the name to Cloud Foundation. They're synonymous. So once the patches are downloaded, you choose when to deploy them, and you're deploying them per workload domain. So you could take down, just the production workload domain one day, after you've successfully deployed in the test and dev workload domain, however you've configured it. You're going to schedule the date and time to apply the updates. There's going to be just one update bundle active at a time, right? So you're not worrying about, did I deploy a bundle that I downloaded 4 weeks ago, and am I deploying this, different one that I downloaded yesterday at the same time? No, we don't let you do that. We don't let you shoot yourself in the foot. You're only going to deploy one of the update bundles at the same time. Typically, you're going to upgrade the management domain first and then take care of the others. we take care of all the dependencies for you. So if an update is dependent on another previous update, we're not going to let you apply it, right, without having that previous required update in place. We'll warn you here in the bright orange text saying, hey, time out, you got to do something else first. Buttons right there to let you download and patch the previous required update, and then you can carry on with your current version. So you can see in the interface picture to the right that I have scheduled my updates for 3:19 p.m. I don't know who schedules things for the middle of the afternoon, but that's what we chose here in our lab. So it's scheduled, and when the updating begins, you'll be able to see the process as it goes. So we'll show you the number of tasks that are involved in that update, right? All the subtasks. I'm patching vCenter, I'm patching ESXi, I'm patching NSX, etc. You can keep an eye on it as it's going and see when they're actually complete. If an update fails, you're going to see a failure message. And then if it does fail, which shouldn't happen often, but on the occasion it does because a DIM was bad in the host or whatever, you'll be able to restart the update once that failure has been resolved. So fix the bad DIM, go back in and say resume update, and off it goes, continues to patch right where it left off. So two huge capabilities then, right? The ability to carve up your environment into the workload domains, make your infrastructure ready to run. And doing it in a matter of days, even hours, making it ready to run, and then lifecycle management ongoing, taking what oftentimes consumes a huge amount of virtual infrastructure admin's time, takes that and makes it go away so you can focus on things that are far more important, right? Get rid of the patching nightmare and just run your infrastructure as though it's a cloud. So if that sounds appealing to you, how do you get started? Well, first we have VMware Hands-On Labs. Hopefully you all are well aware of Hands-On Labs at this point. They're not just available at VMworld, although it's a great time to do them. But if I'm at VMworld, I like to attend sessions and meet people that I don't get to see very often. So I'll do my Hands-On Labs at home, kick back with an adult drink and click through and learn something. So today we have a guided tour through the entire SDDC Manager interface and the core capabilities of Cloud Foundation. So a lot of the screenshots I saw today, you'll actually be able to click in and do some real stuff, a little more exciting, hopefully. So do that if you want to get an idea of the basic functionality of SDDC Manager and what provisioning and lifecycle management looks like. It only takes an hour or two. If you're interested in the technology, you can work with your salespeople, be it through a reseller or through your VMware sales rep, to do a remote POC. We do have some hardware available that you could access to do remote POCs on. Excuse me. And then finally, we have a solution center out in our Palo Alto headquarters. Multiple racks of hardware from multiple vendors that run the complete VMware Cloud Foundation software stack. If you're going to do this, usually you're a pretty serious purchaser, really needing to get some hands-on to fully understand it. We'll bring you in for anywhere from 1 to 3 days and do a guided engagement with our business unit. So our experts hands-on with you, taking you through the entire product, talking about your use cases, how you're going to go through it. So speaking of use cases, great time to start thinking, where would I use this in my environment? How would this solve my problems? Do I need to deploy virtual infrastructure faster? Do I need VDI? Right? We've been talking about VDI, but the deployment time and the quote that I got from my partner seemed astronomical. This can make it a lot simpler if it's just a few interface clicks and you have a full VDI environment that will be even self-patching as we saw in some future versions. Maybe you want to take on NSX and start to do some microsegmentation. Don't figure out how to deploy NSX, right, doing the installs and all the boring stuff. Figure out how to truly leverage it to protect your workloads. So get an idea of how it would fit in your environment and start that conversation with your VMware partner, your VMware sales rep, and dig into what this really means for you. So again, just bounce back here to our consumption options to remind you what vendors are available to work with today. The vendors that are available are ever increasing. A lot of the hardware community does want to work with us on this and are actively engaged in having their hardware qualified. So expect more coming down the pike. So with that, I'm going to leave you with a few links where you can learn more on our webpage, our blogs, our hands-on lab, and how to follow us on Twitter or the VMware communities. And with that, David, I'll turn it back to you, and I think we're going to go to some Q&A.
Yeah, excellent presentation. Really lots of good in-depth info there on Cloud Foundation, and we have a lot of questions from the audience about what you talked about. So I'm not going to try to filter them too much here. I'll do my best, but I'm just going to kind of run down the list. We don't have a lot of time left for questions, so let's just take them as they come in, I guess. So first one is, can you kind of recap the difference between Cloud Foundation and VVD?
Sure. So VVD is produced by the same business unit, by our integrated systems business unit. It's fully validated designs. It's not hardware, it's not software. It's just taking all the products and saying, how do we best deploy them? What design decisions do we have to make to ensure that these resources are available and accessible, and and et cetera, et cetera. It's documentation that says this is how you do it right if you're going to do it yourself. Cloud Foundation is, yeah, it's great. I trust VMware. They wrote all that documentation. I hope when they deploy a product, they're going to follow it. We do. And you just want to buy the hardware and start actually using your cloud. Cloud Foundation will do that for you. And on top of that, Cloud Foundation does offer the ability to create those workload domains that we talked through. You're not going to get that out of a VVD, right? That's not a construct. It only exists within Cloud Foundation, available through SDDC Manager. And the same for the lifecycle management component. You're only going to see that through Cloud Foundation. Okay.
Oscar here, he's asking, how many points of management essentially do you have? I mean, can you manage everything from SDDC Manager, or do you have SDDC Manager for kind of the orchestration and upgrading, and then you have the vSphere web client, or how's that work?
Yeah, it's the latter. So SDDC Manager provides the deployment of the physical resources and will lay down your base software and do the patching. For the day-to-day stuff, if you want to clone a template to a new VM, you're still going to use your vSphere web client for it. I think we all say, where's my single pane of glass? We've been asking for that for, 20 years, 30 years, right? It's probably not going to come. What we've done is we've provided as few panes of glass as possible to administer your environment in the best way possible.
Got it. How is this different from VxRack, they're asking?
So VxRack is Dell's specific hardware implementation for Cloud Foundation. So Dell chooses their hardware kit, their switches. They install Cloud Foundation for you. They do the basic imaging of your environment, ship it to you, and when you turn it up, you have SDDC Manager, as well as a few Dell specific add-ons, specific to their hardware to use. But it is Dell's implementation of Cloud Foundation, just like Fujitsu PrimeFlex is their implementation of Cloud Foundation.
Okay. What about VCE Vision? Is that the same as SDDC Manager?
No, it's not.
Okay. And then what about the difference between SDDC Manager and the vRealize suite?
Yeah, so SDDC Manager is going to provide orchestration, think day 0, day 1, day 2 type of stuff against the virtual infrastructure. vRealize suite will monitor that virtual infrastructure, right? That's part of its job. But the other part is monitoring and managing, deploying, providing a content catalog for your users to deploy IT services out of, right, on the vRealize automation side. More about the workloads that run on top of VCF. So really two different planes of management, two different purposes for them. They fit together, and Cloud Foundation will manage vRealize components for you going forward. We had a slide on that. Hopefully that explains that for you.
Yeah. Let's see. Can I bring my own licenses like with VxRail?
Yes. So we have SKUs available for you to purchase where if you already have some components, say you already have vSphere, we can sell you a Cloud Foundation license that includes just the components you don't have. So vSAN, NSX, SDDC Manager. There are a whole lot of ways to do that, just like purchasing any enterprise software. There's all sorts of ways to do it, so talk to your sales manager. But short answer is yes, you can bring your own licensing.
Okay, and we'll do a few more questions, but I know we're running over time now, so let me go ahead and announce the winner of the Amazon $300 gift card. That is Lise Hanley, L-I-S-E, Hanley, H-A-N-L-E-Y. Congratulations. We'll reach out to you via email. If you have more questions or want to continue the Q&A, stick around for a few more minutes. If you have a few more minutes to do some Q&A, Josh, do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's see, just a few more questions. There's a lot of good ones here, so I want to try to get as many answered as we can. Is SDDC Manager included in the vCloud suite?
It is not. Only available through Cloud Foundation.
Okay, and how is Cloud Foundation different from a private cloud, or is it a private cloud?
So Cloud Foundation makes deploying your private cloud dead simple. If you were to deploy Cloud Foundation fully, it is a private cloud.
Okay. And then, you talked about deploying a lot of different components, like during the setup.
Yeah.
What they're asking here is, once this whole Cloud Foundation is set up, can the admins on site basically do whatever they want to it, or do they have to call VMware to make changes, or how does that work? Where's the delineation line there?
Yeah, so there's a lot that the admin can do themselves. You shouldn't have to call VMware for anything unless you're poking around where you don't belong. That said, you do have to be careful with what you do. It is possible if you were to install an update to a component yourself and the inventory database didn't know about it, it assumed you were still on VROps 6.2 and you had updated to 6.4. You would break lifecycle management capabilities. So we're always looking for ways to improve on that, but today you have to be careful, and a lot of that is in the documentation that's available to you.
Okay, and can Cloud Foundation run anything besides VMs? Like, can it run containers?
Theoretically, yes. There's no reason why you couldn't create a VI workload domain and then deploy vSphere integrated containers inside of it. Absolutely no reason that you couldn't do that at all. The only gotcha is that it's not going to be automated for you yet.
Okay. Let's see. What about integration with vRealize automation?
Yes. Today, in the version that's GA today, we do not have integration with vRealize automation. But stop by the booth at VMworld and we can show you some neat stuff.
Okay. Will there be a version that you don't have to use vSAN? Like, can you use your existing SAN for storage?
That's a good question. So in the version that's available today, you can actually connect to external storage, but we still require vSAN to be available. I don't know if we're ever going to have a no vSAN at all option, but you can use your external storage as it is today.
Okay. There's a couple questions here about partners. Omar says, we are a vCAN partner, a public vCloud provider. Can we offer VCF? Yes,
you can. Reach out to your partner benefit manager and start the conversation.
Okay. There's a new Intel processor coming out. Will that be supported? So I think the question is basically, when new hardware comes out, how is that integrated or supported by VCF?
Absolutely. So it will be within reason. We do have the stipulation, though, that we are going to test it. We're going to validate thoroughly new hardware before we say, yeah, go ahead and try it, customer. But we want to guarantee that your private cloud works and works correctly all the time.
Got it. And that makes sense because a huge part of VCF is availability and reliability. All right, I think that's all the time we have for questions. But Josh, you've got some great links up there on the screen. The vmwa.re/VCF GitHub page is really cool. I've seen that before, actually. That's a great resource. And of course, the VMware Hands-On Labs are just an incredible, totally free, bring up some incredibly complex configurations at any time. Great resource for everyone out there to go learn about Cloud Foundation, NSX, vSAN, everything that VMware has to offer. Thanks so much for being on the event today, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me. Get me on Twitter, as you saw my handle earlier, or any other way you want to track me down.
Okay, awesome. And thanks everyone out there for joining us on the VMware Cloud Foundation 101 event today. Make sure you check out some of those resources for more information, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.